In this video, we'll be doing the Easter eggs prediction for Season 7, Episode 10 of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Spoilers not cut up. So the episode's title is called Stolen, which is referring to Nathaniel stealing Inhuman powers from the Inhumans. And a lot of people have seemed to have issue with how it's so easy to take Inhuman powers when it was already established since Season 2 with Whitehall and all that kind of stuff, that you can do this, even though he didn't directly get Giant's powers. He got a part of it, but this is obviously a more advanced technology and all that kind of stuff because of the Chromicons, most likely. So they're able to do it more easier, I guess. But you had even even back in season 4, they also were able to steal Inhuman powers, but was by with magic, as far as I understand, like Darkhold and whatnot. In the framework storyline, because Ada was stealing Inhuman powers, uh, in the framework, so it's it's not beyond, uh, like, or it's not like coming out of nowhere or anything like that. So I don't understand why now people are having issue when it's been established that you can take Inhuman powers from them in in any different method that they can figure out to steal it. So yeah, but you have in this episode you meet a or a familiar character, but with a new face, so obviously. But you have young John Garrett, who is actually played by the late Bill Paxton's son, uh, who is James Paxton, and it's nice that they actually brought him onto the show to actually honor his dad's memory and whatnot. And you have Nathaniel Malik, basically recalling the same story that Garrett tells Ward back in season 1, episode 21, about how his guts were out and he had to duct tape it and stuff like that. Uh, and this whole scene takes place in the Shield safe house, that has has been used multiple times throughout the season. So it's just a familiar set that we see again in this episode. So yeah, and you have this reference that apparently Mac is not happy being back in the 80s, and I'm assuming May isn't either, because she wasn't. She said she didn't want to relive the 80s again back in 2 episodes ago. So yeah, I'm assuming she's not happy either. And we actually find out, and we find out that the Geek Squad actually realized they weren't real members of Shield, but now they are officially going to the actual normal way of becoming normal Shield, an actual Shield agent, is by going to the academy. So they're going, they're in there right now. We meet up with Agent uh, Roxy, I think. Yeah. Oh no, it's Roxy Glass, I believe it is. So yeah, we catch up with her for a bit, and she said that she gives us some information about what's been going on in the 80s, and apparently she said we could meet back in at the Triskelion after they graduate, and Coulson realizes that the Triskelion isn't supposed to be in use at this point in time. So just like Project Insight earlier on in the season, the Triskelion is also ahead of schedule. And Agent Glass mentions that you're not in TV anymore, Coulson, because that was the last time she actually saw him. Uh, and we're basically catching up exactly what's going to be on during this mission, stopping Nathaniel, and they said that uh, that May and Yo-Yo promised Jiaying that they would help her, so this is the perfect opportunity to do that. So they're going to call her to come to the lighthouse, and then they can make a plan to find a way to stop Nathaniel from stealing more powers from the Inhumans. So yeah, uh, And you have a scene with Sousa, Daisy, and Simmons, where basically Sousa is geeking out about this lighthouse, of how high tech it is, and what's called Daisy and Simmons aren't very like they don't really care about it anymore because they said that they spent a lot of time down there, so we are kind of over it, something along those lines. So they don't really care to be down here at the specific point in time. So yeah, but we actually go right for it in this episode, and we Daisy confronts Simmons exactly what is the last thing she remembers, and why would Simmons be so distraught last episode, inconsolable, that Daisy says, of what what could have happened that made her be that way. And I still have no idea. I still think there's a way that possibly that Fitz is dead, and I'll get to that later on. But we find out that apparently Malik, or Nathaniel, actually it had saved a bunch of people from dying, similar to how she saved Cora and Garrett in this episode. So his basically army is of dead people, pretty much. Yeah, and this is probably a very big stretch here, but earlier on in the season, I mentioned that one of the agents' names could possibly come from a comic book called the Irredeemable Ant-Man comic books. But here you could have a possibility that this guy that we meet here, called Dr. Grady, could be a sneaky reference to O'Grady from the comics, who is the Irredeemable Ant-Man, because he was a SHIELD agent and all that kind of stuff. But here you have him. Apparently, this Grady says that, or they say that this Grady his tech was too dangerous for the world or whatever. That's what SHIELD said to him. So it's possible, since he has a SHIELD connection, it is a way to reference O'Grady from the comics, but I don't think it actually is. So yeah, and I do find it funny that this episode actually made Garrett an actual clairvoyant, even though he was later on in the first season. But here, he actually finds out everything, not everything, I don't think, but majority of the stuff that Sybil wanted to show him from the future. He did, like Coulson dying, and they mentioned that later in a bit. But he basically has become an actual clairvoyant, knowing what happens in the future. So I kind of find that funny that they made Garrett become the actual clairvoyant. So yeah, and Daisy finds out that Daisy finds out she has an actual sister that would have killed herself, and she's going down this rabbit hole of since Cora didn't or if Cora died, Jang would have left Afterlife, would have gone to done charity work, would have got together with Cal, and had Daisy and all that kind of stuff. But since Cora didn't die, Jiang didn't leave Afterlife, and so on and so forth. So yeah, and another stretch here, I don't think it actually is, but there's this character Durant that we meet, where Nate was name dropped. But there is a character in the comics called Dan Durant. Was in Kid Colt Outlaw number 104, which came out in May 1964 or 1962. So, but as far as I understand, they made a joke about Kid Colt Outlaw in Agent Carter. So I don't know if they would ever actually have a character from those comics in the MCU as an actual character. So I don't think that's actually supposed to be him or not, even though there's no actual like uh, connection or history of Dan Durant in the comics. So it's a possibility that they just used that name to like inspire, like reference that comic book, but I don't think it actually is. And then you actually have another reference to Whitehall in this episode with Nathaniel saying his catchphrase again. Discovery requires experimentation, and basically explaining that they're Robin Hoods, giving stealing from the high and mighty and giving it to someone that's more worthy of it, which is very twisted logic in that sense. But yeah, and then there you have the scene with Coulson and Mac on one of the Quinjets talking to Gordon, and he actually asks them, "You don't trust me?" And that's a very funny scenario considering he's the one that actually was attacking them in the finale of season 2 and actually had Coulson's arm get chopped off and all that kind of stuff. So it's, even though this is the younger version and he's actually a nice guy, there is cause of worry of, can you actually trust this guy or not, because we don't know exactly how he is, and like could he turn on you at any moment, but obviously he doesn't. And there's this little like call back to the Geek Squad again. There's actually a couple of references to the Geek Squad, but Deke is trying to examine like the jump drive and wondering how to fix it and why it's not why it's not working properly. But he's listening to music while he's doing this, and when you actually see what he's listening to, it's the Geek Squad mixtape Volume 2. Obviously, a callback to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and Volume 2, and like the mixtapes that Star-Lord had. And actually, apparently, it's this Deke's headphones are the exact or very similar to the ones that Star-Lord was using in those movies. So it's a nice little connection there. And I don't know what song it actually is, but so can you, if you know, just comment down below if you know that song, because I cannot think of what that song actually is, but I recognize it. I just couldn't tell you the title. If it even is like an actual song, that beat I recognize for some reason. So yeah, and you have unlike Mac and May most likely not wanting to stay in the 80s, you have Deke actually thinking about that staying in the 80s would be the best for him, because he actually was appreciated there and actually was welcomed with all the Geek Squad people and whatnot. People actually liked him there, unlike the Shield Squad that we've been dealing with. They don't really care for him. We see there are like moments, but then there are moments that just piss the team off that they just don't care for him. So yeah, I can see where Deke would be coming from in that sense. He would be a perfect fit to stay in the 80s, because he actually could become a like he would be it would be a good place for him. I just don't know if that's actually where they're going to go with the season, if he actually stays in the 80s or not. So yeah. And you have Simmons and Deke talking about exactly what's going on with the jump drive and why it wouldn't be working, and she's worried about what Daisy was saying about whether or not Fitz is dead, and she mentions that she references the season finale of season 6 with saying that when it looked like the end of for Fitz and me, they had Enoch there, something along those lines. So yeah, they referenced that, and but I don't know if this actually is a reference or not. There's a scene with Coulson about to go into Afterlife with Gordon's teleportation powers, and he asks him, do we need to hug? And it is kind of funny because last time we saw him in or not last time, but in season 2, he did hug every single one, I believe. I believe every single one he ended up hugging, teleporting them away. So it could be a callback to that when every time older Gordon used his teleportation, he did hug the person. So yeah. And you have Coulson trying to convince or talk to Malik's knock some sense into Malik and whatnot about what he's doing is stupid and stuff like that. And Coulson kind of made the mistake saying that the Chromicons killed Nathaniel's father, Freddy, when it was actually our SHIELD agents, and it was Deke that killed him. So yeah, I don't know where Coulson was going with that. And you have Freddy making a comment about, or making a reference which Coulson pointed out, which I would not have actually recognized. But apparently, what Malik says is better angels of my nature, something along those lines. And it's apparently something apparently Abe Lincoln said back in the day. I would not have known that because I'm not a history buff. So, yeah. And Coulson, basically has a reunion with Garrett without actually knowing at first. But he gives Coulson a clue saying, you vaporized me with a space laser, which is referring to the 084, which the first 084 we came in contact with in the show, which was in the second episode of the whole entire series, and then was actually used on Garrett in the finale of season 1. So, yeah. And you have apparently Garrett mentioned that he saw Coulson die a bunch of times, and apparently his favorite one was when the long-haired creepo stabs you with a pointy stick, talking about Loki and the Avengers and whatnot. And people are confused of exactly, or there's some people I've seen confused of exactly why they didn't just say Loki or whatever in this instance, and saying that there's some weird rights issues, but that would not be the case. Literally, this season, they've mentioned Red Skull, they've mentioned the Super Soldier Serum, they've mentioned Bruce Banner, Project Insight, so there would be no issue at all to mention Loki. They just made it a little callback, especially considering this Garrett only would have seen the death of Coulson, not anyone's name or anything like that, so he would not know who Loki is. So yeah, I assume. I don't know. And you have this conversation with Daisy and Sousa, and Daisy says that fascism is back, and people are took it a different way, talking about the real world. I just assumed that they were talking about Hydra and all that kind of stuff, that they just keep coming back and they've never gone away since then. So yeah, I just took it that way. In the TV world, fascism never gone away, is back. So yeah. And you have Daisy filling in Sousa about what happened with Jiaying, because he remembered that Jiaying was said by Daisy after being tortured by her powers were stolen by Nathaniel a couple episodes ago. And you actually have later in a bit the actual reunion I actually mentioned a couple episodes ago that they never had, but it was the Dollhouse reunion between Daniel and Susa and Jiaying, because those actor and actress were in that show Dollhouse together. So they actually finally had an actual reunion. And you have Susa talking about a guy, saying he's a guy that was supposed to something about be under the guidelines of I like Ike or something like along those lines, and apparently it's referring to Eisenhower, because it was his nickname, and I believe I actually mentioned Eisenhower in the black and white episode. I could be completely wrong, so it still, there's no like inconsistency there, I don't believe, in timeline wise, but it's a symbol of hope that was in the spring of 1951. So yeah, and you had the actual finally the reunion of Daisy and Jiaying, talking about how Daisy was, how her upbringing was about, and meeting her mother, and how it didn't end very well and stuff like that. But the beginning of the reunion is a callback to season 2 episode 17, where she uses the glass to make music and stuff like that, which was used last episode to mirror Daisy and Cora, and how her powers are so destructive compared to Daisy's more delicate touch, I guess. And we actually get, like I said, and we get another callback to the Geek Squad, and apparently Garrett went to one of their concerts, or not their concerts, but a concert for the Twisted Sister, which apparently the Geek Squad opened for, and the Twisted Sister was a band from 1972 to 1988. I don't know exactly when Geek Squad would have opened for them, but obviously it was in between 1982 to 1983, because that was when they were there, but I don't know exactly when they would have done it. So yeah, and you have Garrett mention his famous catchphrase again, or uses famous catchphrase about if the job was easy, it wouldn't be any fun, which actually goes even further to his connection to Ward, because he, in the very first episode, Ward actually used that catchphrase. So you actually saw the influence that Garrett had with Ward in that episode, and then you later on, when we actually met Garrett, we actually found out that he actually uses that same catchphrase as well. So yeah, and I do kind of find it interesting that the way that Gordon dies in this episode is like the exact opposite of how he died in the first place, in the future technically, is instead of trying to kill and almost killing Coulson and Fitz and Mac and dropping the crystal in the air, is Gordon actually dies saving Coulson in this episode, instead of trying to kill him in the finale of season 2. Similar to how Daisy or Jiaying died in this episode, where instead of trying to kill Daisy, she actually is trying to save Daisy in this episode. So I really like the different, like the shift that they did with those two character deaths. So yeah, but you have Jiaying or Daisy trying to not actually tell Jiaying exactly what's going on, and that she was her mother, but Susa had to be a jerk and spill the beans, and he references it. It's like season finale of Dallas, which was a show that aired between April 2nd, 1978 till May 3rd, 1991. And I'm not sure if there was ever an actual reference or an actual season finale where, there's some woman finding out that, they had a daughter this whole time, or something like that along those lines. It's a possibility, because I've never actually watched it, but yeah. And a little fun detail is that Mac calling in Yo-Yo through the radio because she was in backup because they didn't want to risk her getting caught. But right when she clicks on the radio saying "Yo," he was about to say "Yo-Yo," but he was cut off to "Yo," and that's basically a sneaky little way of explaining or saying that she's not a yo-yo anymore because she doesn't have to bounce back because of her new upgrade and whatnot. So yeah, so she's no longer yo-yo. And you have uh, Nathaniel basically doing a recap of basically what was explained throughout the episode and whatnot about how Hydra cut her to pieces and stuff like that. And then basically recapping the series finale or the season finale of that season 2, how Cal had to step in after Jiang was trying to kill her, Daisy, and ended up killing her, and you see basically Daisy's not really happy because she decided to cut him off right before he said "dear old dad," so it's a very touchy subject for her, obviously, with dear old dad and Jiang and stuff like that. So it's nice that she cut him off right then. And speaking of dear old dad, because at the very end of the episode, you actually have this scene with Garrett and Nathaniel and Simmons on Zephyr 1, and you have him say "best day ever" twice, and it's a possibility it's somehow a callback to Cal, because it was a big Jiang and Daisy centric episode this episode. So it's a possibility that was a callback to Cal's catchphrase of being the best day ever. So for predictions, I'm still going with the theory that Fitz could be dead, but that doesn't mean that he's not alive, because it seems like he's alive in some form. That's what they're dealing with now, because Simmons is going to have to help Nathaniel go to find him. But it's a possibility that he did die, and in some way Simmons found a way to put Fitz in an AI voice thing, kind of like Jarvis is, like an actual AI, so it just his voice. But I don't know if that would be the case, and it would back up, connect to the theory that of being dead or whatnot, but also we would connect why we had not seen him, only heard his voice in the season finale of season 6, where he actually was only a voice at the time saying good luck, or talking to Simmons at the end of the end of the season. So it's a possibility there. And I don't know, this is not really a prediction, I just want to put it out there. But where do you think the finale is going to take place? When is it going to take place? Is it going to take place in 1983, 2012, 2019, or 2023? I do think it's probably going to take place in 1983 because of the whole age difference. It would be really weird if Gideon or Malik and all that kind of stuff don't have a spaceship, time travel ship to go to the future, because they have to go the long way, and by that time they would be very, very old, and then they would have to recast the actors just for that one episode, and I don't think that would be the case. So I think they're going to probably stick around in 1983 until the finale of the series. So yeah, comment down below where you think, or when you think the season finale is going to take place. So comment down below. See ya. Bye.